When was the worst time you overslept? I had about 2 hours to kill before a huge meeting with an important person, so I decided to take a short nap. I woke up about 8 hours later. That job didn't last long. I woke up with the alarm clock, hopped out of bed, showered, and headed to work. Walked into the office, cheerily greeted everyone with the usual good morning, then became aware that everyone was staring at me, including a very angry-looking boss who demanded to know where I had been all morning. Turned out that my phone had, for no particular reason, changed the time by a couple of hours. It was only my genuine and completely obvious astonishment, and ability to show the time on my phone, that meant that I didn't get in trouble. I was so confused. Worked in the Navy, got cut away for the night to return the next day. Only I didn't hear the last part. Got blackout drunk at a mate's house. Slept through till about 1 o'clock. Ship went into emergency protocol for a missing person. Notified the local police, hospitals and morgues. Was deemed a missing person, had my next of kin and landlord called. Turned on my phone to about 40 missed calls and messages. Finally got back to the ship. Luckily the breathalyzer wasn't working that day. It was my second year teaching. I had already started out with a shitty year. I had 3 separate subjects to teach in a middle school where everyone else taught one subject. My classes were terrible. I hated that year. My scores were crap, and I knew I was on the chopping block. Then it happened. I had a bad headache one night, and the only medicine I had was Tylenol. PM being 7 o'clock at night, I thought I'd be fine to take 2, since I had more than 8 hours to sleep. Boy, was I wrong. I woke up the next day to my dogs going insane at the door of my apartment. My dad was outside screaming and knocking. I thought someone was dead, for sure. Then I realized. It was 10 a.m. Work started at 7. I wasn't just late. I was miserably, embarrassingly, and unforgivably late. You can brush off 30 minutes. 3 hours is a different story. When I came to my senses, I realized what had happened. Not only did I sleep through my alarm clock, but my phone was dead. Several of my coworkers had called me and I didn't respond. I was so embarrassed, but I had to call my boss. It was simple. I just explained the situation. As soon as she answered the phone, my adrenaline wore off and I started crying and apologizing and begging her not to fire me. Turns out there had been an accident on the highway that morning, and everyone was so relieved I wasn't dead they weren't even mad the principal gave me the rest of the day off. I bought her really good cupcakes the next day. I did get made fun of forever after that. But I didn't get fired. I woke up on time, had a bath, fell asleep in the bath. Woke up about 10 minutes after I usually leave for work. I literally got the $1,000 attendance incentive for making it the whole year, then the very next day I slept in 3 hours and lost it for the whole next year. I had a job where I had to be there at 5 a.m. most days and it was an hour away. I had the worst time trying to wake up pretty much every day. Luckily they didn't keep track and they knew I was good at my job so they usually let it slide. I was supposed to get there on a Sunday one day. I woke up at 10 a.m. Slept right through my alarm. Called my boss as I was getting ready and he said, "Oh, I didn't even know you were missing today. Well, I don't really need you but you can come in if you want for a few hours." I didn't. I figured an hour drive there and then back wasn't worth 4 hours of work. When I was a shift manager, and I overslept when I was supposed to open up the store. Starbucks, by the way. A few years ago, I had a boyfriend who was really bad at waking up. He would sleep through his alarms regularly and miss classes and such. So, when he had to get up at 4 in the morning to catch a flight, I said I'd sleep over, set my alarm and wake him up. That's what I did, only did I realize a little too late that when I changed the alarm from 4 o'clock, to a little before 4, I forgot to change the hour, so the alarm was set at 4:50 instead of 3:50. He didn't miss his flight in the end, but damn I felt bad. I got selected for the so-called honors program for excellent students in my first year of university. Lots of nice trips to several countries in Europe were about to happen, all paid for by school. I was doing a great job, until the day I overslept and missed a not even important meeting with a teacher. They woke me up with a phone call and I got fired immediately. My sophomore or junior year of college, can't remember which for sure. I worked full-time, at least 40 but closer to 50 hours, and had 19 credit hours in the education major. This entailed lots of extra classroom observations and field trips in addition to regular coursework. I was super excited one random Wednesday morning to get the opportunity to sleep in because my first class was cancelled. It was only an extra 30-45 minutes, but it was nice. While driving to my second class, I passed an elementary school and realized in an instant that I had forgotten about a volunteering opportunity read required for class that I had been voluntold to do at the last minute earlier in the week because my first class wasn't meeting during that time and they needed more people. Not only did I leave a class of 3rd graders without their career person was supposed to help them with their practice interviews or something, I got called out by my professor during our next class. He made me stand up while he lectured me and everyone about commitments and then kicked me out of class until I returned with an apology letter that I had to read out loud. He then kicked me out again because my excuse was that I just plain forgot, that my schedule was super crazy, and it was unlike me to do anything like this, ever. He almost flunked me, too, but I saw that coming and got other staff to intervene. Walked in my sleep to the living room, sat in the sofa and kept on sleeping there. Didn't hear the alarm because the clock was in my room, only woke when my boss rang to find out why I was an hour and a half late for work. That was one confusing morning. I once went to bed just after sunrise and woke up just before sunrise. Was working on a puppet show at this theater with a raging hangover, after having gone straight into work from a party the night before. I was in the booth for 3 performances that day, with only one pyro cue to operate. Big reveal at the end of the show, featuring a wizard puppet. Felt like shit during the first 2 shows, then decided to lie on the floor of the booth during the 3rd. Promptly fell asleep, missed the cue, then was woken by someone banging on the door of the booth. Show was over, audience and angry puppet company had all left and this was the caretaker wanting to lock up. Had some explaining to do to the boss the next day. Agreed to help someone move. Rolled over on top of my phone and the alarm was muffled. I'm a heavy sleeper, so if nothing is set to wake me up, I can easily sleep 14 hours, which is exactly what I did. He still doesn't speak to me at it. I am a bit shocked and amazed at the response I've received for this comment, and I'm concerned that maybe I'm hijacking the thread. Would this be AMA worthy, or is it okay to contain the discussion here? I truly don't know. Either way, I'm more than happy to discuss my sleep issues with all of you and I'm super curious to hear feedback. Sleep apnea had never occurred to me, and probably never would have if not for the responses. Anyway, this isn't even the last of my sleep issues. I didn't even get to my science of sleep thing where I confused my dreams with reality. Tell me the medium you want it on and I will gladly oblige if you want. I suffered from depression and general lethargy in my first few years of college, and couldn't build up the will to do much of anything. At one point, my friends had to call an RA to open my room and make sure I was still alive, because I'd slept something like 23 hours straight. My boss asked me to pick her up from the train after she stayed overnight in Chicago for a meeting. I end up waking up to 15 missed calls with the last voicemail telling me she got an Uber and don't bother coming into work that day. Just went back to sleep. I'll never forget my first grade 9 exam. I took a bus to my school and I was frequently late, or just absent altogether. So I was really worried I would sleep in and miss an exam. That day, I wake up and look at the clock. It's like 1:00 exam started at 8:30. I started freaking out and getting ready as quick as possible, until I realized the exam would have been well over. So there was nothing could do. I laid back down, defeated. Then I decided to call my dad and tell him about his disappointment of a son. That's when I heard his phone start ringing in the house, while he was supposed to be at work. Then it finally dawned on me. I went to the living room, looked out our tiny-ass window basement apartment and it was still pitch black. It was 1 a.m. Yeah, doesn't really count but still. I woke up one morning quite hungover. I looked at my alarm clock and saw it was 10:40 a.m. Why did I drink last night? And I practically threw myself out the bed thinking I start work at 9 and to only realize it was Sunday and not Monday. I spent all night working on a paper that was due at 9 a.m. I finished around 6 and decided to just sleep an hour or two because no sleep is pretty bad on my system. Ended up sleeping through my class and never was able to turn in my paper. Overslept and missed a final exam in university. Rushed to school and made up a bullshit story about how my girlfriend thought she was pregnant and was freaking out. Professor let me take the exam by myself in his office and managed to pass the class. This whole post fills me with anxiety. Woke up 6 minutes before work once. Now it's not much considering it's barely a mile away. Thing is though back then I had to walk to work. Also I weighed 285 pounds but believe it or not I actually made it. I can't imagine what people thought seeing this giant ass hairy man thing sprinting like a maniac. Edit. Okay guys, I just found out some crazy news. I've never told my mom the story of how I sprinted a mile to work in just 6 minutes. I told her and she gave me this dead look. She said, "Son, I need to have a talk with you." She then told me the story of how throughout our family history that the fattest members of our family were great sprinters. Rotund Rebecca of Salem, Harry Humongous, Not Slow Steve and many more. Here's some footage she showed me of my father. I was the only breakfast chef. Had worked the night shift before so had very little sleep. Had to get hot and cold food buffet out for 170 sleepers starting at 6:30. I woke at 6:15 because I'd ignored my alarms. Luckily I was staying in the hotel. The worst was when I had a 10 a.m. Saturday wedding, for which I was organist. The power had gone off the night before, so my alarm clock was off schedule and I overslept. When the phone rang, it was the minister, playing Get Me to the Church on Time, from the musical My Fair Lady. Fortunately, he knew the power had been off, and said he'd delay the wedding until I arrived. Even the couple understood and gave me a bonus afterwards for racing to the church without coffee, breakfast or shower to play Here Comes the Bride. Was in Afghanistan on a convoy augmented in with the Army. I'm a Marine. We get to a fob and my task was to repair a trailer and load up a Mac 50 crane. A bunch of stupid little logistical problems come up all night, not having the right fitting, flat tires, occasional gunfire. So it was a long night, zero sleep for me. Sun finally comes up and I'm in an LVSR waiting for the Army to get loaded up and leave. I nude off in the passenger seat and wake up because I have to piss. I step outside to learn I just slept through one of the most kinetic firefights I probably would have ever seen. Oh well, no casualties on our side at least, and I got done resting for the long drive home. I had the most important exam in high school. If you don't pass, you don't graduate. So I totally overslept, put on any jeans I grabbed and an old sweater, didn't brush my teeth or my hair, didn't put any makeup on, then rushed to high school pretty fast. I was the last one to enter, so you can imagine the look on everyone's faces when they saw me. Yup, wasn't pleasant, but hey, I'm a nurse now. I was working 2 jobs. Got home at 5:30, had an hour to nap before my second job. Woke up 9:00 the next day, late for job 1. I was pretty much always tired. Was heading into London for the first time with friends going to MCM, woke up 2 hours late, friends left without me so I had to travel there solo to meet them. Got into King's Cross confused as fuck how a tube works, saw a group of cosplayers, assumed they were headed to the same place so asked for help getting there, made friends while traveling, then didn't see them again while there. Got home and tried to get in touch with them on the web, ended up getting a message from one. 5 years later we have a flat and a cat who wakes me up by jumping off the wardrobe onto my dick. I'm stuck with it that I had lost my phone the night before and had a flight at 7 a.m. It was important that I caught this particular flight because I was kicking a 5-hour ride from a friend as soon as I landed. I had to use my roommate's iPad as an alarm. It didn't go off, but I luckily woke up with a minuscule chance of catching my flight. I had to call an Uber with my roommate's iPad. I was originally planning on taking the train to the airport and then hoped to find the Uber outside because I couldn't leave the apartment with the iPad. I got to the airport 7 minutes before my gate closed. I sprinted through the terminal. I got to the gate as the door was closing, but the dickhead at Delta Airlines didn't let me in. I work graveyard shift, so I usually go in at 11 p.m. When I went to sleep before that, I forgot to turn my alarm on, so when I woke up it was almost 2 o'clock. My phone was in the other because my mom used it for something, so I didn't hear my coworker calling texting me. Worst part is there was a moment when I woke up and thought, well, the alarm didn't go off yet, and went back to sleep. If I just rolled over and looked at the time, I probably would have caught it. Thankfully they weren't suffering too much without me and I didn't get in trouble. Took a nap so I'd be energized for my dad's 50th birthday dinner. I was the MC. I was giving the speech. I was driving my parents to the restaurant. I needed the boost. Woke up at 2 a.m. NBA Finals 2006. I took a nap like an hour before the final game, and ended up sleeping through it. My phone ringing off the hook with people telling me the Heat won the championship. I was furious that I missed our first title game. My friend wanted me to help him paint his kitchen, fell asleep on his couch, and bless him he didn't wake me up until he had finished the whole job. Was at the Girl Scouts, went out camping, and I was supposed to do the 2 a.m. 5 a.m. guarding shift. I slept through it and was woken up by a cow eating our stuff, chaos ensured, and was denied my camping badge for a while. First job out of college was directing the morning newscast for a small market TV station. My schedule was to arrive at 5 a.m. and go live by 6. I would then finish the day around 2 p.m. One winter day I arrive home and crash out. I wake up, it's dark out and my clock reads 5:45. I panic. Luckily I live a block from the station, book it there, enter the building to see the 6 p.m. anchor looking at my like, WTF? He looks at the clock and laughs at me, knowing exactly what happened. Got kicked out of my internship because it was a shithole and I slacked doing boring things, cleaning up the basement, etc. I was on Reddit more than I should have been, so it was my fault mostly. They kicked me out, but I still needed to get graded regardless. So with a lot of convincing, the boss scheduled a meeting with me at 10 a.m. I went to bed at a normal time. Woke up at exactly 11 a.m., don't know why I turned off my alarm and went back to sleep. Called the guy and made up some bullshit excuse. He said that was the last straw and I never saw him again. Everything turned out fine in the end, but boy was that bad. This past weekend I was supposed to go camping with some friends on Saturday. Just for one day. Friday night I'm out driving because I drive for Uber and Friday nights I make decent money. So I was out until about 3 a.m. Well, I overslept by an hour Saturday morning and missed all of the phone calls and texts. Everyone left without me. My camping gear is still sitting next to the front door. I still feel like shit. Was sick a few months ago. Had a nap in the afternoon. Was being woken up by my phone ringing. How annoying, kept sliding the screen to reject the call. Finally, one of the calls got into my head. I answered it. It was my children's school. I'd forgotten to pick them up. An hour ago. Whoops. Freshman year. 8 a.m. physics test. I woke up an hour late. Put on a sweater and gym shorts. Shorts turned out to be backward and ran out to class. It was pouring down rain. Get to class and it's completely dark because everyone has left. Luckily professor was just about to leave. He saw the desperation in my face and let me take the test in his office. Aced it. One of my favorite teachers. Turns out he told his other lecturers the story anonymously and added in that I was crying and bawling in order to let him take it. WTF Lamau. I slept through an exam for college. I needed that exam to pass the course. My alarm did not go off and I completely missed the entire thing. 3 months of summer school and extra costs I wasn't planning on. I went out and bought an actual alarm clock after that and stopped relying on my cell phone. Monday night I nodded off before I could submit my homework by the deadline. Went out on Friday night, had a big one. Figured I'd have a nap before heading out Saturday night. Missed LTJ Bookham because I slept straight through to Sunday. Balls. Had an interview at my first real job. Started at $17 an hour. Damn good for a 18-year-old. Interview at 8 a.m. At 9:30 a.m. my wife and I both woke up, noticed the clock, and screamed. I was out of the house in 3 minutes. Somehow, I got the job. Still work at that company and I'm thankful every day. Looking back it's still not funny. When I needed the toilet. Didn't go down well. Had a college class final exam, slept through my alarm by a full hour and missed it. However, the second section of the class was immediately after the first. I went to the second section, and noticed that the pile of exams from the first class was in a neat pile on the desk at the front of the lecture hall of about 250 kids. I take the exam, which fortunately turned out to be the same test as the first sections, and I walk down to the front. The teacher is talking to another student so I take my exam, pick up half the pile of tests from the first class, and stick my exam in the pile. She looks over and immediately asks me what I'm doing. I explained very politely that I missed the first section that I'm actually in, and took my exam and turned it in just now. She asked me what my name was, clearly not okay with what I was doing. I smile, gave her a made-up name on the spot, said have a great holiday and walked out. A in the class. Victory was mine. Stayed up late studying for a calculus final exam the next morning. Woke up 15 minutes after the test started and ran to the exam. When I got there I realized I had forgotten my calculator. This is when I worked retail. My boss asked if I could come in early the next day for a reason I can't remember. I said sure thing. That night, either I didn't actually set the alarm on my phone or I slept through it. I woke up at 9 a.m., the time I was supposed to be at work. Whoops. Lived studied overseas, was playing semi-pro baseball but that wasn't going anywhere. Set up my SATs so I could start applications in the USA. Overslept and missed my exam date. This lead for me to have to wait for another year to take it in this country. During this time I got bored and spent more time with my current girlfriend. This led to me doing terrible future decisions and breaking up with her 4 years later and a college dropout. Fell into a depression, gained 120 pounds. Lost a lot of friends so to recap, overslept one day in 2006, ruined my fucking life. Studied for 2 full days and pulled an all-nighter for my Bio 2 exam. I put my alarm on for an hour, but it didn't go off. I woke up 2 minutes into the exam, started freaking out, and quickly ran to the wellness center. Told the doctor I was throwing up and fainting, and got a slip for proof that I was actually at the doctor. I then emailed my teacher explaining how sick I felt and he allowed me to take the makeup. I then got a full night's rest for the makeup. Still got a C. Worst, with a happy ending. After 2 years of only part-time work, I had mercifully landed a new job. I had my very first business meeting in the UK. Arrived in Dublin from the US at 4:00 a.m. and had a connecting flight to Birmingham at 10:00 a.m. Airport was deserted. Think I'll just rest my head on this table in the food court. Couldn't actually sleep even if I awoke, still half asleep and in a panic at 9:54 a.m. Ran through the airport like an idiot. The gate was a fair distance away. Got there, and the agent says, XX. Username, Michael? Me yes shakes his head slowly. They've gone. I'm getting fired. There is no doubt. I must have looked really awful, because he says, "Hold on, let me try something." Calls someone, and says to me, "Hurry now, go out this door and wait for the ride." Like something out of a movie, a dark Mercedes with blacked out windows comes screaming around the corner, the window rolls down, and I hear, "Get in." Some awesome Irish guy drives like a secret agent, right up to the steps of the plane on the tarmac, refuses my pitiful tip of an American $10 bill, and says, "See? I know we'd make it nothing to worry about." The flight attendants were equally kind about me holding up the plane. Not bad for my only visit to Ireland. What great people. I'm going back someday and will find several random good deeds to do. I have a recurring dream where I am in college and oversleep, and for whatever reason I miss or cannot find any of my classes. I graduated college over 40 years ago, but the recurrence of the dream has created the worst time I overslept. I had been out of work for about a week, and it was expected by my team that I'd be a little out of touch upon return. A week in New Orleans can do that to any 20-something-year-old. I had plans to see some friends the day before I went back to work and originally was going to be responsible and go home at a reasonable hour, but this friend wanted to do karaoke. My girlfriend would have a blast, I'd have fun with them, so why not? They aren't expecting me to be at 100 in the morning. Long story short, we had a good time. My friends and my girlfriend get along, all is well. My girlfriend and I had a fun time stumbling home and did the 2 a.m. fast food run, but only remember because we wake up around 8 surrounded by wrappers and chicken nugget boxes. I have the early shift at the office, so I'm in, or should be, at least at 7 a.m. I brush it off. I've been in late before, and my girlfriend lives closer to my job, so it won't be long before I'm in and I get my stuff together. In a pretty good mood despite a bit of a headache. Walk in and about 3 people immediately start talking over one another and are in dire need of assistance. Turn out, the one time I let myself sleep in and be late, the entire phone system for the office was down. This is a major problem for a company that relies on being able to make and receive calls at all hours. I was meant to go to Paris with a mate and overslept. By the time I woke up, my mate was already in Paris and didn't realize I'd missed the train until he'd got on. I then did the exact same thing with the same guy a few months later. I'm an awful friend. I was supposed to run a marathon, but I overslept and missed the race because there was a separate knob for the radio alarm. Why separate knob? Why? The final nail in the coffin of my college degree was when I slept through the examination for C. I would probably have scraped a pass, but I thought the exam was at 1 p.m. and not 8 a.m. I didn't get up until 11 a.m. and a few people had emailed me asking why I didn't show. Not my finest moment. I dropped out a few weeks after that. It did work out. I had a job offer lined up at the same time, and that led to my eventual move to the US. We'll get married, but who cares? Actually, a fun story. I was out at a festival all night and took the first train home in the morning. It's only a 5-minute ride, but I managed to miss my station. No big deal, I thought. The train will take around 20 more minutes until the destination. Turn around and drive back as he usually does. Easy. Set up my alarm 35 minutes later and went back to sleep. Turns out this train has a decent schedule on Sundays, so I woke up close to the next big city. Got out there, and took the train back home on a different route, which is a bit faster, and went via the city where my journey started. I even bought a big cup of coffee to sober up. You guess it, missed my station, ended up in the next big city. The city where I started lies right between those two bigger cities. Took the train back from there, and this time I made it. Started my journey about 6 a.m., ended up at the place I started about 5 hours later. So, once again, took the train home. 5-minute ride. Don't fucking ask me how, but I somehow managed to wake up right as the train was leaving my station. I decided to fuck it and left at the next station and walked home from there. Took me around 20 minutes, was home a little late for noon. Today I overslept my flight. Yesterday evening I was bragging how I never oversleep and have never missed a flight, and voila, woke up after my plane long gone. Karma is a bitch. Also Belgian beer. I had a meeting with my boss at work to discuss a raise. I slept in. By 3 hours, let's just say I didn't get the raise. This actually just happened to me yesterday. My professor had asked a student me, since I'm always there and on time, that next class she was going to be out and to pick up the film and attendance sheet in her mailbox and put the movie on and bring it all back at the end of class. Well, I woke up at 10 a.m. for the 9:30 class. When I got there only like 10 students were there. I left a note on the attendance sheet about how sorry I was and took full responsibility for no one seeing the movie. I still feel bad. I once dismissed my alarm in my sleep. No clue how I managed that, but my brother woke me up 30 minutes before I had to get to work. My job was 20 minutes away, so I just threw on some deodorant, hopped into the car and booked it. No idea what I did for breakfast, probably grabbed some stuff from the kitchen that I could eat on the move. I also once slept through a doctor's appointment. This is one of those special clinics that are very strict with their policies. I had to re-register with them and reschedule. Next time I miss an apt I can't get care from them, so now my biggest fear is missing out on that again. I wasn't too bad at lacrosse in high school, so I decided to try out for the college team my freshman year. The coach pulled me aside the first day of tryouts and said, "You have a spot on the team, just show up to the next day of tryouts and you have the spot." I got drunk that night and slept right through the morning tryouts the next day, ruining my chances of making the team. I went to the cafeteria to eat lunch that day, and wouldn't you know it, the entire lacrosse team was there after they had just gotten done with tryouts. They all just kinda stared at me and some laughed. It hurts to think about because I miss playing so much, but oh well, life goes on. I once woke up 2 hours after my shift started. I turned the alarm off in my sleep, I think. I took a short nap at an airport while waiting for my flight. Missed my flight. Woke up 4 hours later. Thankfully nothing had been stolen, aha. I slept through 9/11. Went to another city one day early, booked a shitty motel cause it's the closest to where I should take a test, study till 0000, set the alarm to 0700 as the test starts at 0900. Next morning, I woke up, looked at my phone, it was 1050. I spent almost $1,000 cause I did not want to be late, and I overslept, so I just said fuck this bullshit and started touring around the city. I can't read this thread anymore. I have enough stress in my life. My sister's wedding. I was the maid of honor. I oversleep every day. I can go to bed and sleep for 12 hours and feel tired, and I can sleep 3 hours before a shift and still wake up feeling tired. Longest I've slept was 18 hours last week. I nearly missed a job interview for my favorite store. Got there a minute late and the interviewer wasn't ready. I'll probably be late to a couple of those shifts just because I'm always tired.